few years ago,
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions. So from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
Are you ready? Ready or not? Here we go. The Bill Press Show, Tuesday, July 28th. Great to see you today. And thank you for being part of the program as we come to you live from Washington, D.C. in our studio here on Capitol Hill. With lots to talk about this Tuesday on Free Speech TV and worldwide on a video stream, Talker TV. President Obama wrapping up his African visit, pardon me, with his second day in Ethiopia after addressing the African Union and a couple of other meetings. The president will start winding his way back home, flying first to Ramstedt Air Force Base in Germany and then back here to Washington, arriving, we believe, early Wednesday morning while he was in Ethiopia. Boy, again, the president taking issue with Mike Huckabee's comments comparing the Iran deal to the Holocaust. The president saying it is sad to see political discourse degenerate to that level. And he just accused Mike Huckabee, or suggested that all Mike Huckabee was trying to do was out-Trump Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Huckabee refuses to apologize, and of course, Rick Santorum and Donald Trump have both said they agree with Huckabee's comments. In other news, the Boy Scouts have lifted their ban against gay scout leaders. Boston has withdrawn its bid for the Summer Olympics in 2024 because they don't want taxpayers to get stuck with the bill. And Hillary Clinton came out yesterday with a strong proposal to deal with climate change by investing a lot more in wind and solar and renewable sources of energy. Give us a call to talk about all of the above at 866-55-PRESS. How good to see you today. Look forward to hearing from you on the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
All personnel aware of the proper protection of women. This includes all personnel identified as staff and role players, CIDs, and support staff. Please, throat, and drawing protection is mandatory and should be worn at all times by personnel directly involved in or near the scenario. Always check your mask prior to use to ensure there are no cracks in the mask and the safe working conditions.
Should I put the water in there now? Yeah, go ahead. This is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Feeney's yelling at me.
Help me. Shoot your hands. Shoot your hands. Back to
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy?
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94, there was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with, and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Mike Huckabee doesn't apologize. He just doubles down. Idiot. Hey, hello, everybody. Here we go. 28th of July. Wow, whatever happened to the month of July?
Right?
Man. You know, we were watching fireworks yesterday, and today, goodbye, July. Almost. Tuesday, July 28th. Good to see you today. It is the Bill Press Show, and you're part of it on your local Progressive Talk radio station. You're listening this morning. We appreciate it. You're part of the show. You're listening on our iTunes or not the the iHeartRadio.
There you
right?
go.
There you go. Or the TuneIn app. You're part of the show. You're listening there as well. Every corner of this planet, we got you on, of this nation, we got you on the radio and on television as well, Free Speech TV, if you're watching, or worldwide, watching on our video stream, youtube.com/TalkerTV. All of you down in Ethiopia, they're watching while the president was in your homeland. You can continue watching the Bill Press Show every day. We welcome you to the program. And glad to see you wherever you happen to be listening or watching. Look forward to hearing from you. What you think about the issues of the day, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. It takes a village. We got the village, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hello there.
Hey, good morning.
Indeed.
Here we are.
Good morning. I'm telling you, Jamie Benson. On the phones, ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS and Cyprian Bolding, bonjour, Cip, wherever you happen to be. Still in Paris, so far as we know. Monty Kensler here as our videographer, keeping the cameras and the lights on for Free Speech and Talker TV. Who knows? But next,
I can't wait to get the full download from Mr. Bolding when he gets back.
No, and we already have the program lined up for next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Cyprian's going to be showing slides.
Yeah. We're bringing back the slides.
Yeah, right.
What I did on my summer vacation.
Cyprian slideshow.
Yeah.
Cyprian the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
Cyprian the Louvre.
It's going to be hard to run camera with that big beret
Cyprian
he's going to be wearing.
Moulin Rouge.
Yeah.
Cyprian Notre Dame. And maybe other places.
Try and speak French to him when he comes back. I'm sure he picked it up pretty quickly.
Bateau Mouche. He'll be all over the place, right? Man, so President Obama winding up his African visit today. A full day of activities, including addressing the African Union in Ethiopia, and then he'll be winding his way home, getting back. Not sure when. I think like early tomorrow morning, Washington time, or maybe late tonight. At any rate, I didn't realize this. We owe a big thanks to Ethiopia, as the president mentioned yesterday. It's changed the world.
I'm certain that Americans want to thank you for one in particular, discovering something that sustains people around the world day and night, and many people in the White House, and that is coffee. Thank you, Ethiopia.
Okay.
Who knows?
Yeah,
Who knew? I thought coffee came from, Hawaii. The Kona Coast, or Latin America, right?
Yeah.
Ethiopia.
Yeah, there's good coffee in Ethiopia.
And
so I mean, when you go into the Peregrine, the nice coffee shop here, they always have that Ethiopian stuff there.
But I mean, he seems to indicate, I'll have to check that it actually originated there, right, and then went around the world. So there you go. Who knew? 10 minutes after the hour now.
Colombia is going to be really angry, I think.
That's true, yeah. There'll be a battle, right, to find out who's the real source of coffee. It's Tuesday. We're very excited on Tuesdays because we have both Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post and Igor Volsky back-to-back. Igor from Think Progress, of course. A little bit later, Congressman David Cicilline from Rhode Island. Sabrina Siddiqui here as a friend of Bill and President J. David Cox from the American Federation of Government Employees. Man, what a lineup today. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Let's start at the sports desk. You know, I love minor league baseball, Bill. There was a great minor league baseball game. The Delmarva Shorebirds from Maryland were taking on the Augusta, Georgia Green Jackets over the weekend. They were in the 9th inning, tied 4-4 when...
Did they play in Salisbury, the Delmarva?
I do not know.
Shorebirds?
This game was in Augusta, so I'm not sure where they played
in Salisbury.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Maryland.
Well, in the bottom of the 9th inning, Eller Leiva, one of the players, he hits a home run. Score was 4-4. Hits a home run. That makes it 5-4, right?
I thought.
Well, here's the problem. He rounded third base. He ran towards home plate. He jumped up in the air as his teammates congratulating him.
And he never touched home?
And he never touched home plate. No. He never touched the home plate. He was too busy celebrating. He walked off of the field, and the Green Jacket said, hey, whoa, he didn't ever touch home plate. The umpires took a look. Turns out they were right. They gave him a triple instead, which they did not capitalize on. Went to extra innings, and they lost.
Oh, my God.
They had the game. He didn't touch home base, and then it's over.
So close.
Mm-hmm. So close. So close. When was the last time you flew into LaGuardia Airport, Bill?
Well, I don't fly to New York very often.
No.
I always take the train. But
no. It's been a while since I've been there, but next time you fly in, it might look a little bit different. That is, if you go after 2021. Joe Biden and Andrew Cuomo both sort of holding a little availability yesterday, said that LaGuardia Airport is essentially going to be torn to the ground and rebuilt. It is going to be completely overhauled by the year 2021. So in about 6 years or so, we're going to have a whole new LaGuardia Airport. It was part of a big push talking about infrastructure here in America and fixing it, and they're going to start there with LaGuardia, man.
It's really a mess.
It's one of the worst airports in the country.
Right.
It is embarrassing.
In the world.
In the world. It's embarrassing that it represents New York. It's been a while since I've been, but I remember being stunned at how bad it was.
Remember, Biden got in trouble because he called it a third world country last year.
Yeah, remember that? He absolutely did.
But he was right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About that airport.
Yeah. In 2024, the Olympics might have been coming to Boston, but that is no more.
Right.
Boston has dropped their bid to get the 2024 Olympics. The International Olympic Committee saying that Boston just not up for it and sort of dropped them out of the running. So that is it. That is it. Los Angeles is still in the mix, which I didn't realize because they had sort of said Boston was going to be the one hope for America. But Los Angeles apparently still has a chance. So we will see how it.
But from what I read, the mayor said, that the taxpayers would have got stuck with the bill.
It seemed to be a mutual breakup.
Yeah,
because the Olympic Committee kind of said Boston wasn't up for it, and Boston kind of said we're not going to. We can't afford all of this.
Right.
Yeah.
No, so I mean, I think it's great to have the Olympics in town, but I think he made the right decision in the sense that you don't want to saddle taxpayers. That hosting the Olympic Games, building all those facilities or improving facilities and everything, it's a lot of money.
Our buddy Dave Zirin has done a lot of reporting on cities that have housed the Olympics in the past and just the total economic turmoil that you could put your people through because it is expensive. It's really expensive, and again, you get stuck with it.
But so the Olympic Act's like sort of the Major League Owners Act, right? Yeah. They want the city to pay for the entire stadium.
Yep.
They put up no money. They get all the money. They get all the profit. Put up no money. And the Olympics, the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. They'll get the glory and the money, but they want the city taxpayers to have to pay. So yeah, tough.
Not a good deal.
Thank you, Peter. Indeed. Yes, indeed. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. The disgusting comments by Mike Huckabee comparing the Iran nuclear deal, which he opposes. Okay, you can oppose it. By the way, it has been pointed out that back in 2008, it was Mike Huckabee, when then running for president the last time around, who suggested that we really should sit down and negotiate a nuclear deal with Iran because that would be better than having Iran have a nuclear weapon, and we really should try diplomacy and not military. I mean, he is basically writing the script for Barack Obama in 2008. But, of course, that was then, this is now, and he has discovered that he thinks the way to the White House is to show that he is a bigger friend of Israel and a bigger enemy of the United States than anybody else, and that's his whole plan. So he comes out, and we heard him yesterday talking with, thanks to Sirius XM, the Patriot channel, who got this audio from his interview with Breitbart, where, in effect, he's comparing President Obama to Adolf Hitler, the Iran nuclear deal to the Holocaust.
This president's foreign policy is the most feckless in American history. He's so naive, he would trust the Iranians, and he would take the Israelis and basically march them to the door of the oven.
Good grief.
It's so, I had heard it over and over. It is just so disgusting. Yeah, it really is, to say something like that. So, of course, he has a chance. Fox News, remember, he worked there for 8 years, right? And they'll give anybody a chance to redeem themselves, if you will. So he was on yesterday during the day on Fox News. So do you want to take anything back?
Absolutely, I do. 3 times I've been to Auschwitz. When I talked about the oven door, I have stood at that oven door. I know exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, well, I've been to Dachau, too, right? That doesn't mean you're right comparing it to the Holocaust. I've been at that oven door.
So what?
Yeah, right.
Big deal. A lot of people have.
What? A lot of people, millions of people have, right? Doesn't mean anything. And then last night, he goes on Bill O'Reilly yet again on Fox News, another opportunity. Do you want to apologize? Do you really still think you said the right thing?
I think he is naive, especially when it comes to radical Islam. He won't even call it by its name. And I do not think he likes Israel. He can say whatever he wants to, but he puts more pressure on Israel for someone building a bedroom onto a house in Judea or Samaria than he does on the Iranians who are trying to build a bomb, for God's sake.
He's such a liar. President Obama doesn't like Israel. Yeah, right. I mean,
the weird fetishization of the relationship with Israel and the Republicans kind of drives me nuts, man.
Yeah, I mean, even Netanyahu, who's certainly no friend of Barack Obama, has said that nobody has done more to support the Israeli state, to support Israel than Barack Obama from a national security point of view, even though they have differences on policy. And by the way, this idea that opposing more settlements in order to get a peace deal between Israel and the Palestinians, that was a policy of George W. Bush, opposing the settlements. And Netanyahu stuck it to him, and Netanyahu's sticking it to Obama. But Obama's all he's done, President Obama, is continue on that front, continued the policy of George W. Bush, which either Mike Huckabee doesn't know or just ignores. It's not just adding a bedroom to a house. By the way, in the West Bank, which he calls Samaria, meaning it's ours, baby, right? Yeah. No. At any rate, it's just so disgusting. President Obama, I mean, this ricocheted around the world. President Obama was asked about at his news conference yesterday, and rather than attack, he just kind of took the high road.
Part of just a general pattern that we've seen that would be considered ridiculous if it weren't so sad.
So sad to see the discourse in politics degenerate to such to the gutter is really what he's saying.
It's a great way to address this.
Yeah,
I mean, it is sad. It's pathetic.
I know. Yeah, and I'll tell you what's also pathetic. The president also pointed out that probably what Huckabee's doing is just trying to get some oxygen when Donald Trump is sucking all the oxygen out of the room.
Maybe this is just an effort to push Mr. Trump out of the headlines. But it's not the kind of leadership that is needed for America right now.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about at the very, you have a Southern Baptist minister who is running for president, who called and compared the president of the United States, compared him to Hitler.
Right. Now, here's what's equally shocking to me. What about all the other Republicans? What do they think about this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Silence. Radio silence. Crickets. Jeb Bush is the only one who, actually, Jeb Bush, to his credit, the only one to speak out mildly critical. He said, it's just wrong, just plain wrong what he said. That was Jeb Bush's comment. The spokesperson for Donald Trump said Trump actually agrees with him. Rick Santorum said he actually agrees with Mike Huckabee. Not a peep from any of the others. Not a word from John Boehner. Not a word from Mitch McConnell. Not a word from that coward Reince Priebus, who is probably the worst Republican, worst chair of any national party ever, 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 ever. Nothing from any of them. Why not? And did you notice? Not a word from Benjamin Netanyahu. Where's the Prime Minister of Israel when he hears that comment coming from Mike Huckabee? I'll tell you why he's silent, because Netanyahu is the one who made this a political football between Republicans and Democrats, between Republicans and President Obama. He made this peace deal, which, again, is probably the most significant peace agreement in our lifetime since the end of World War II. And Netanyahu is the one who made it a political football by coming to the United States Congress last March and making that speech attacking the deal and attacking the President of the United States. Benjamin Netanyahu is the one who inspired those kind of comments by Mike Huckabee. So, I mean, my question to you, I guess, is what do you do about a Huckabee? I mean, I thought John Allen yesterday on our show said it very well, where he said, what it really means is from now on, nobody should take anything that Mike Huckabee says about anything seriously.
No.
We should just sort of write him off as a total nutcase. And by the way, he has given us other ammunition for recognizing him as a total nutcase. We'll play some more of that when we come back. Your questions, your comments, 866-55-PRESS. Where are all the Republican leaders? Why aren't they speaking out and condemning this? And why haven't we heard from Bibi Netanyahu?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see. You have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. And we went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law, so we could smoke dope all day in the open. You know, the dope dealers ain't scared because you know, they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Yep, 27 minutes after the hour. You can say anything, it seems, and get away with it in politics these days. That's how bad it's become. You can even compare the president to Adolf Hitler, and your fellow Republican candidates won't say anything. Hell, half of them will agree with you. By their silence, they all agree with Mike Huckabee. Is this what we're going to accept in politics? Jesse, down in Miami. Hello, Jesse. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Bill, and to all.
Thank you.
I think we got to expect a lot more because this is a clown show. They weapons of mass distraction from the capitalists, have no solutions to inequality. So, they're going to be saying anything and everything and spending. They talk about $1 billion to win the next presidency. I wouldn't be surprised if they spent $10 billion.
Well, if Donald Trump is the nominee, and Donald Trump keeps going in the primary, he will be spending that kind of money. Hey, Jesse, good to hear from you. But I love that phrase, of weapons of mass distraction. By the way, I think a lot of it is, I think the president was onto something yesterday. I think the reason you're seeing more and more extreme comments from anybody, all of them, right, is an effort to get a little attention when the spotlight has completely been stolen by Donald Trump. It's Tuesday. Arthur Delaney in-house from the Huffington Post. He joins us next here on the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
How about it? 33 minutes after the hour, The Bill Press Show. Here we are this Tuesday, July 28th. So good to see you. Brought to you today, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and brought to you today by our good friends at AFGE, starting with the president, Lee Saunders, and all the good men and women of AFGE, making up the largest public employee and healthcare workers union in the entire country, doing great work, and you can find out more about all their great work at their website, afscme.org, AFSCME.org. Can't get through the news of the day. We can't without the help of good friends. No better friend than Arthur Delaney. No better friend of yours, middle-class Americans, working-class Americans. Arthur Delaney, fighting a good fight for you every day over at Huffington Post, which still covers Donald Trump, but only on their entertainment page. Hello, Arthur.
Good morning. Good morning, loyal listeners.
What page do you cover Mike Huckabee on?
We cover everything on the front page.
No, what page do you cover? Is he also Mike Huckabee on the entertainment page?
He should be on the religion page, right? Since he's a minister.
Yeah, right.
He's on the politics page.
But not Donald Trump.
We've been over this.
I know. I just want to know.
We've been over this, and the answer is no.
Do you see
Donald Trump is on the entertainment
the error
page
of your ways?
No.
Because all these other clowns are covered on the news page, but only one clown is covered on the entertainment page. I'm not here to defend Trump. I'm just saying.
With each passing day, the righteousness of our decision is clearer and clearer to more and more people. It's a huge decision we made, and it is really classy.
In your mind and Ariana's maybe, but nobody else.
Donald Trump's got a lawyer. Oh, well, maybe we'll talk about it. But the campaign is going down.
Go ahead. You're on.
Going down in flames. We are now.
The Donald Trump campaign? What's the evidence of that?
We're now in the phase of the Donald Trump campaign freefall, where the past rape allegations have been discovered in old books by other campaigns and distributed to reporters. And he's got a lawyer making unhinged threats to a Daily Beast reporter named Tim Mack.
Our friend, Tim Mack. Right.
Yeah, a friend to everybody. And it's just a disaster. It's the absurdity, the silliness of it is becoming clearer by the day.
Mark my words. These disgusting allegations, or disgusting probably facts, right, about Donald Trump are going to have no more impact on his standing in the polls than his attack on John McCain.
No, they will have more impact. He's going to face sustained and withering Oppo research. It's the same way Herman Cain went down when he was the front runner, and this is what happens. This is the natural life cycle of a fake candidate who can't win, but has gotten into this race for a variety of reasons, probably all unrelated to any actual desire to be president of the United States.
Well, I'm not pretending that Donald Trump's going to be the nominee, don't get me wrong. But
I think you might be angling for a Cuba ambassadorship in the Trump administration.
No, I'm angling.
That's actually not a terrible
I'm angling
idea.
for that I'm angling for that ambassadorship in the Bernie Sanders administration, not the Donald Trump administration. On Donald Trump, MSNBC reports this morning that his net worth is not $10 billion. After all, it is.
You want to get sued? Don't. We know it's not really that much. Just don't tell anybody.
I said MSNBC is reporting. I didn't say. But they say it's actually $2.9 billion.
Oh, wow.
To which my comment is, that's still a hell of a lot of money.
That insane lawyer is going to have something to say about that. Donald Trump sued a guy who wrote about this in his book many years ago. Tim O'Brien, who was a reporter for the New York Times, also worked at Huffington Post for a bit. And Tim has recounted how Trump talking about his own net worth, the number just jumps around.
Yeah, right.
And it's
nobody believes
it's preposterous.
Nobody believed. And when he filed those papers, nobody believed his
Part
number.
of the problem
is he's very
my
litigious.
Point is, if he has $3 billion, he still can do a lot of damage if he's willing to spend that money in this primary.
Billionaire is a big deal compared to millionaire. So he's still on this whole other plateau that other politicians have not achieved.
Right. And he could still mount, were he to do so, I don't think he would, mount a serious third-party candidacy with $3 billion.
That would be great. Very entertaining.
It should be noted.
I know.
It should be noted.
I hope he does.
Yeah,
yes.
Totally. It should be noted that part of the reason that he has so much money is that he's gamed the system proudly. Right, like he talks about how he gamed the system. He's filed for bankruptcy 5 times.
You're gonna get sued. It was business bankruptcy, not a personal bankruptcy. So that he hasn't let these mountains of debt attach to him as an individual, rather to Trump enterprises, much like Newt Gingrich over the years.
Yeah.
Speaking of Newt Gingrich, I wanted to ask you about that, because most people have forgotten him as a presidential candidate. At any rate, you don't hear much from him anymore. But there are some people who haven't forgotten or forgiven him for his presidential campaign.
And Donald Trump is the reason this is a wonderful time to reflect on the Newt Gingrich 2012 campaign. Because at the end of 2011, as the Republican primary was heating up, Gingrich was far and away the undisputed #1 candidate.
Because he did so well in the debates, and
he had great debate performances.
And he had Sheldon Adelson paying his way.
Yeah, and he performed well in some of these early states, and he won South Carolina early in 2012. So he was a major front runner, and this attracted the oppo, the opposition research, and it was the beginning of the end for Newt Gingrich. When you become the front runner, the additional scrutiny will bring you down, and it did. But he kept campaigning out of some sort of maniacal ambition when it was abundantly clear he couldn't make it. But people who were with the campaign were with Gingrich and wanted to win, and now they're all holding the bag for the Gingrich campaign in 2012 to the tune of the campaign owes these people who did all this work in these states like Florida, Arizona. The Gingrich campaign owes them $4.6 million.
That's his campaign debt.
Yeah, still.
Is he paying it off?
He's paid off since then about $300,000 worth. So no, he's essentially not paying it off. And I interviewed some of these
Who are these
creditors.
people? Are they?
They're people who own small businesces that make your yard signs,
Like printers, or
who put up poles and curtains at events, or who did logistics planning, or coordinated volunteers who made phone calls or knocked on doors. A whole range of dozens of businesses, and these individual businesses were really almost upended by the amount of money for which they got stiffed by Newt Gingrich, and the campaign had no response to this. The man actually has a history of this. He's founded a number of organizations in Washington that didn't pan out and collapsed under $500,000 of debt. So it's a pattern for people who are super ambitious.
He's left this trail of debt all through his political career, is what you're saying. But so he's got he had his sugar daddy, Sheldon Adelson. Why doesn't he get Adelson to pay at least 50 cents on a dollar? Or, I don't know.
It's a good question, and the people who are owed money don't want to complain too loudly, and it's not easy to get them to go on the record. And when they do go on the record, they emphasize that they're not bitter about this. Because if they raise their hand and complain loudly while they're continuing to try to do business in the political world, they don't want to look like complainers.
Yeah.
They don't want to look like bellyachers. And also, maybe they think there's a chance that they'll get the money, but I think more likely they're realistic that no one's going to give money to Newt 2012 at this point, not even Sheldon Adelson. So they think there's little chance that even if they did get together and file a lawsuit, the money would exist for them to be paid. Meanwhile, Newt Gingrich is, going on exotic vacations and kissing the Pope's ring.
Right. And I'm sure making no effort at all to raise any money.
But anyway, this is the just the destruction left in the wake of one of these very phony campaigns.
On some serious matter of business here in Washington, D.C. that I know you've been following, the Highway Trust Fund. I still find, to me, it's so emblematic of how this system is so broken today that you can't even get bill through Congress to maintain our roads and our highways in this country.
This is the last week before they go on vacation.
Yeah. Right.
So the House passed a temporary bill, a 5-month bill to get us through most of the rest of the year.
And the Senate passed a 6-year bill.
The Senate is in the process of passing a 6-year Highway Trust Fund reauthorization that has been very controversial, that has had Ted Cruz drama. But anyway, they're going to pass it.
Yeah.
And the House is just saying, no, we don't want your 6-year bill. You pass our bill. So for people who like metaphors, it's too easy. It's a game of chicken. It's gridlock. They're going to kick the can down the road. These are all car metaphors.
But my question is,
sorry.
Okay. Well, what happened to this idea, right, that we were sold, that you give Republicans charge of both houses of Congress and they'll show how they can work together and get things done? Mitch McConnell and John Boehner haven't been able to get anything done, and the Senate and the House haven't come together on anything. Not on immigration reform.
They had a Medicare doc fix, but there have been some things where they
very little. But in this case, Mitch McConnell said, he said, I think McConnell's right on this. We've got to do this. This is the right thing to do. It's good for this country. We got all these roads and bridges and everything that are falling apart. Come on, we have to make a decision, investment in our infrastructure. And John Boehner is saying, no, we're going home. We're going out on vacation. We don't care. We'll do it for 3 months.
Additionally, the McConnell approach takes it off the table so they don't have to deal with it as campaigns are heating up for next year. So it's definitely an example of Republican internal dysfunction within Republican Party. And it's totally not clear what's going to happen at this point. Maybe they'll just go on vacation. And we'll have a mini shutdown.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to go on a break and then come back. But there's another aspect of this Highway Trust Fund bill, which is the Ex-Im Bank. And a lot of people don't understand why that is so important. Arthur Delaney is going to tell us when we come back. Or answer your questions on any other issues at 866-55-PRESS. Maybe Newt Gingrich owes you some money. Arthur can tell you how to collect or not. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hi, this is House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi. Bill, congratulations for 10 years of communicating progressive activism on the Bill Press Show. Best wishes for much continued success.
All right, there she is. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Leader Pelosi, former state chair of the California Democratic Party as well. We have that bond, you know. It's 11 minutes before the top of the hour here with Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post. who helped us celebrate our 10th anniversary.
Yes, I helped.
Just by being part of
there, yeah.
I know, indeed. Arthur, what about, so why should any, or should the average American care about the Ex-Im Bank, Export-Import Bank?
Well, it's not a big program. It doesn't cost a ton of money, but it has become controversial in recent years with conservative activists highlighting it as an example of crony capitalism.
I always thought of it as a big Republican deal.
It's a big business deal.
Right.
And big business usually is associated with Republicans. But
right.
You know, in the wake of the Tea Party wave 2010, this thing has really come to the fore as an example of, you know, something that is not very free market. It subsidizes the purchase of exports, transactions that would probably happen anyway. But the argument is other countries are subsidizing, you know, this kind of international commerce. So why shouldn't we have a level playing field for American businesses?
So this is something big business, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, all support and depend on. Right?
Yeah, and the insurgent Republicans killed it. It's dead right now.
The Tea Party Republicans have killed it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, big victory for them. And really, no, it being lapsed for the past 2 weeks has, you know, I haven't seen the stories of lost jobs. It hasn't created this crisis. But anyway, Mitch McConnell and Senate Democrats.
Mitch McConnell wants to resurrect it.
Yeah, so they.
And John Boehner, well, John Boehner may want to resurrect it himself. But
yeah.
The Tea Party won't let him, I guess. Right?
This is what Ted Cruz was so mad about on Friday and into the weekend because McConnell's intent to put this in the highway bill became clear. And that's what he's doing. And he paired it with a vote to repeal Obamacare, as if that would appease.
Right. Yeah.
And Ted Cruz wasn't fooled. He called this vote to repeal Obamacare as meaningless political theater, which is, of course, hilarious.
Coming from
he
him.
knows a thing about that. But anyway, that's what happened. The establishment Republicans are trying to bring it back and will likely succeed. And I think...
Succeed in the House, too, do you think?
Well, that remains unclear, but they'll succeed in the Senate. And,
right. Yeah, I think they have in the Senate. But.
Yeah, House leadership has been so hostile to taking up that bill, at least right now, that I couldn't say what's going to happen. But that's where things stand with the Ex-Im Bank, which I think counts. You know, if you're keeping score, it's mostly this internal Republican battle. Democrats kind of support it too, so they're with establishment Republicans on this.
Does it do anything for small business? Is it all just?
I have to confess that I don't really know. My understanding of it is something that really helps big companies like Boeing.
Exactly.
Big guns.
That's what
it's not so much a small business.
Right. That's what I've heard. Which is even though Democrats kind of just say, okay, fine, you know, but they're not excited about it because basically it's all geared toward the biggest corporations.
And this is
Boeing is always one that's mentioned all the time.
And this is the complaint that the Tea Party Republicans have. This is just centrism, it's cronyism, it's big business, and that's why they're against it. And Democrats and Republicans who are moderate all agree on it.
Which I guess begs the question: is the Tea Party for anything?
It's for limited government, Bill, and constitutional protections on liberty.
But anything in government that they do, I mean, I don't know anything the Tea Party does support.
Police. Actually, not even that.
I bet you they don't even support that. I don't know. I mean,
feels like a trick question.
I didn't mean it as such. I'm just saying. All you hear about the Tea Party is they're against immigration reform. They're against Obamacare. They're against the Ex-Im Bank. They're against doing anything about climate change. I often wonder what are they doing?
They're against. They're standing athwart the tide of history and saying no. That's their thing. Why isn't that good enough for you?
Where do you want me to start? Arthur Delaney, you're on vacation next week?
I'm on vacation next week.
All right. That's it. We're just going to shut down next week. We won't be here next week.
It's a government shutdown.
Yeah, we're shutting it down.
The Highway Trust Fund is shutting down, and so is the Bill Press Show.
And so is Arthur Delaney. Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you.
Keep up the good fight. All right. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. Hey, Tuesdays, you not only get Arthur Delaney, you get Igor Volsky coming up next at the top of the next hour from Think Progress. Peter.
The KISS Army might have 2 new soldiers, according to The Hill, over the weekend. The Starkey Hearing Foundation Gala in Minnesota honored 2 important people, Katy Perry and George W. Bush. But you know who else was there? Was Gene Simmons from the rock band KISS, who posed not only with George W. Bush, but with Bill Clinton, too, who was there. So 2 former presidents posing for pictures with Gene Simmons from KISS. It's a couple of awkward pictures, to be honest. but hey, he met him.
Well, yeah. Bill Clinton will take his picture with anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Igor joins us next from Think Progress.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governor can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we've took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where we're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Mike Huckabee doesn't apologize. No, he just doubles down. Hey, hello, everybody. What'd you expect from him, I guess? July 28th, Tuesday. Here we go. The Bill Press Show. So good to see you today. And we appreciate the fact that you are part of the program. Whether you're listening on your local progressive talk radio station or watching us on Free Speech TV, we are there with you in every corner of this great country of ours. Booming out to you on the radio and on TV from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. And ready to bring you the news of the day from Washington, such as it is, from around the country, from around the globe. And then, of course, get your comments. Find out what you think about it all at 866-55-PRESS. That's our toll-free number, 866-55-PRESS. Or send us your comments on Twitter, at BP Show, on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. And if you do so in the next half hour, you will have the joy, the honor of talking to the one and only Prince Igor Volsky from Think Progress here in studio with us. Hello, Igor. What's
Good morning,
going on?
Bill. Good to be here. I brought some donuts in for the crew.
Thank you. Well, where's that box of donuts?
To celebrate this beautiful Tuesday.
We have our little, yes.
The morning after Boston pulled out of the Olympics bid, I thought, what better way to commemorate than a good old Boston-based Dunkin' Donuts.
So, Dunkin' Donuts. There we go. Yes, right across the street here. We're so we're blessed.
Really, there's Starbucks, there's Dunkin' Donuts.
We got Starbucks. We have Peregrine Coffee downstairs, and we got District Donuts just down the street.
And I know you make it a rule to hit up all three before 6 a.m. before you start.
Let me put it this way: if they were open,
you'd be there.
Yeah.
I'd be there.
True.
The problem
That's
is
true.
there are hours. They haven't yet recognized how early we actually start. You join our team this morning who are all munching on donuts. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Hello, Igor.
Hello.
How's it going, Igor?
I have a donut in my mouth. Delicious.
Igor enunciates the best with his mouth full. We
Igor
do know
has learned.
this.
Your mother never taught you.
There's a great broadcasting trick about never throwing to someone you're doing a show with right after they've eaten breakfast. Naturally, we throw that rule aside.
Violate
right,
all the
Igor?
rules. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Chocolate.
Jamie Benson, we won't even try to get him to talk because we know he's munching on his donut.
No, the FCC won't allow us.
Yeah. So eat your donut, Jamie, so you can answer the phone. Damn it. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. And Monty Kensler here as our videographer for the day. Again, while Cyprian extends his vacation in Paris. We don't know whether he's ever coming back. But
those croissants are delicious, I hear.
Yeah, that's... Hey...
We've got donuts here,
You're
but...
trying to lure him back with your
That's
donuts,
right.
All right, so Igor's here for the half hour, and then, of course, we'll be joined by Congressman David Cicilline from Rhode Island coming up. Sabrina Siddiqui, here's a friend of Bill in the next hour, and we'll be joined then by J. David Cox, President J. David Cox from the Association of the Federal Association. Wait a minute. Association of Federal Government Employees, AFGE.
You got it.
Nailed it.
But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Well. This is an interesting story from Politico. It turns out that Barack Obama and the White House slipped Jon Stewart into the White House a couple of different times. Now, these have been unreported. They are... I want to be clear about this. They are listed in the White House visitor logs and confirmed to Politico. They're the ones that got this story. But 2 different times, October of 2011, in the middle of a budget fight, Barack Obama summoned Jon Stewart, host of The Daily Show, to the White House. And in February 2014, again, Obama requested Jon Stewart to make the trip from Manhattan to the White House for a mid-morning visit hours before the president would go before the TV cameras to warn Russia that, quote, there will be costs if it made any further military intervention into the Ukraine. So when it comes time to have these big policy discussions, Barack Obama leans on Jon Stewart.
Senior policy advisor Jon Stewart. Who knew?
I don't love that story.
That's interesting.
Well, first of all, visiting the White House is one thing. I mean, you sure Jon Stewart just didn't say, hey, I'm in town, I'd like to come by?
Politico is reporting that Barack Obama and the White House... And by the way, the White House, sources in the White House have confirmed this to Politico. They said 3 different Obama aides said that Barack Obama said, we need to get Jon Stewart here before we make these announcements, or as we talk about this stuff like with the budget fight. So he wanted to get Jon Stewart's...
So did he help with the communication?
He helped with the communication, and I would imagine that the president was probably telling Jon Stewart what he would like him to say on The Daily Show.
Right. I mean, maybe the president was trying out his new jokes for Jon Stewart to use later that night.
He can tell a joke.
Yeah, very
He can tell a joke.
But he doesn't give it to Jon Stewart, like facial expressions.
No, he's not as good as Jon Stewart. He does a totally different thing than what Jon Stewart does. But yeah.
Maybe Obama was auditioning for The Daily Show.
So we didn't. Yeah,
we didn't know.
Maybe he knew, and we didn't know.
All right.
Hey, welcome to 2015, boys. The Boy Scouts of America have voted to allow gay scout leaders. Now, this has not been the case before. They had sort of changed their rules to allow gay scouts into the Boy Scouts of America. But yesterday, the governing body of the Boy Scouts of America actually took a vote and ended its decades-long ban on gay scout leaders. It was approved by 79% of the board. So again, welcome to 2015, Woo! Where gay people have the same rights as the rest of us.
Yeah, someday, right? That even the Mormon Church may recognize that.
Who knows?
Or the Roman Catholic Church.
Who knows?
Mormon Church is saying this morning they may leave the Boy Scouts over this.
Okay, see ya.
Fine.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, they'll be missed. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Back to you.
And how about this for progress? The Arizona Cardinals from the NFL announced yesterday that they have hired a new coach, a training camp preseason intern coaching inside linebackers coach. That coach's name? Jennifer Welter. She is the first female coach in NFL history. Now, we've seen this happen in the NBA. The San Antonio Spurs hiring Becky Hammon. She was the first female coach in the NBA, and now Jen Welter will be the first coach in the NFL. Now, she played 14 seasons of professional football.
Football?
Yeah, there's a women's football league, which I had heard about, but I haven't actually seen. We have a team here in D.C. It's women who play full contact football with pads and everything, all the gear. But Jen Welter, she was on the staff of Texas Revolution of the Indoor Football League. And then Cardinal head coach Bruce Arians hired her to put her on the staff of an actual NFL team. Big move.
All right.
Yeah, all right. Maybe I'm just
Why are you
too old-fashioned? But to me, football. I hate football.
We can be good cheerleaders and good football players.
Okay, that's the final word on that.
I'll say this. I'll say this. I can't imagine a circumstance in which I'm going to watch a women's football game. I don't see it happening. But as a coach, sure, why the hell not? I mean, it's a mental.
If you have the skill,
it's a mental game.
You have the ability.
You understand,
Sure.
there are a lot of women who watch and understand and know the ins and outs of football a lot better than men. So, I mean, yeah, if she's got the mind to do it, sure, why the hell not?
I'm going to make it very sexist. No, I'm not.
Oh, no.
I could make it
Go ahead,
sexist. No, I'm not.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Even sometimes I exercise good judgment.
Wow.
Oh,
all right.
one of those rare moments.
This is a first. I'm glad you were here to witness this. Good God.
All right, speaking about bad judgment, Mike Huckabee. All right. Igor, Think Progress, like everybody else, has been reporting on this. I mean, Huckabee, he refuses to apologize, just doubles down, right?
Well, you got to do something to get attention from this Trump primary they're having.
Well, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
It is, and you see the response, how different it is from Republicans when Huckabee makes these comments about pushing Jews to the oven doors, that he claims this Iran deal would allow Iran to push Jews towards the oven doors, of course recalling the Holocaust, and then doubling down, saying that he had visited concentration camps multiple times. He's seen it. He knows what it looks like. So, of course, he knows what he's talking about. Republican top candidates, including Jeb Bush, Scott Walker, condemned his remarks. Other lower candidates like Rick Santorum and Ted Cruz said, good for Mike.
Yeah, right.
But the contrast here is stark because Republicans aren't afraid about pissing Mike Huckabee off because it doesn't really matter if he's upset, because he can't do anything. Trump, on the other hand, can, because the threat from Trump is always a independent bid that's going to take votes away from Republicans in the general. Huckabee doesn't pose that threat. He doesn't have the money. He doesn't really have the capability. And that's why you see that contrast of Republicans saying, well, of course, the Iran deal is a bad thing, but we wouldn't use that kind of language. But Huckabee's doing it because he needs the attention. Now he has it. He's basking in it. He's tripling down on these remarks. And it really goes to show that when we're August 6th and 2 weeks out in Cleveland, Ohio, at the debate where Trump's going to be on stage, less than 2 weeks, this is the kind of direction, the Huckabee direction, that a lot of these candidates are going to have to go in order to get some attention from this kind of the media suck that is Trump.
That was the name of his Fox show, right? The Huckabee direction. The Huckabee direction.
Elisa, we've got that Huckabee on the IRS. If you can let us know when you got that ready, because he has a habit, right, of saying these outrageous things. We played yesterday some of them. The BuzzFeed put together 12 quotes from Huckabee that prove that he's insane. Right? You can also, and this is another, like the Holocaust quote of Huckabee, just proving you've got to go as extreme as you can, or he feels that he has to.
The IRS is the closest thing the U.S. has to a Gestapo.
Yeah.
God.
Right. IRS, Gestapo, Barack Obama, Adolf Hitler, Iran nuclear deal, Holocaust.
And, look, Huckabee, when he ran in 2008, his first presidential run, he was seen as kind of a serious governor who accomplished a lot in Arkansas, a two-term governor who worked across the aisle, who expanded health care in the state, got things done.
Moderate governor, raised taxes to pay for schools.
That's right. Named by Governing Magazine of some sort, or Time Magazine is one of the most effective.
There's a Governing Magazine?
There is a Governing Magazine. I'll get your subscription for Christmas. You just
Governor's
wait.
Digest.
That's right. As an effective governor, and here he is kind of in this like swamp of presidential politics, trying to swim his way out, and he doesn't even believe in the stuff, because back in 2008 when he ran, he said, yes, we should talk to Iran, we should try to find a diplomatic solution to this crisis, and here he is kind of completely in the other direction, all for the attention.
On another front, Think Progress has been talking about, it looked like that Hillary Clinton had another big email scandal, or another aspect to the email gate on their hands, and yet in the end, the New York Times, which broke this story, has had to come out and say oops, we got it wrong.
Oh, this was really astonishing. And I think the second time the New York Times in this election cycle made a big mistake about a Hillary Clinton story. They published on Friday that she could potentially be the subject of a criminal investigation over how she handled the emails that were on her private server. The newspaper then had to change the story, saying that it wasn't Hillary who was in the middle of the potential probe, but rather either people who handled the server or people who were close to the emails could be part of this criminal investigation. Later in the day, they again had to change the story, claiming that it wasn't a criminal probe, that it was just a probe not over the Hillary Clinton emails, but over how the State Department released those emails and which emails they released. Because, as part of this larger story, Hillary Clinton handed over some of her emails that were on her private server to the State Department, told the State Department, you guys release the emails that you think we could release that aren't going to jeopardize security in any way. And this potential probe is about how the State Department handled that process, not whether or not Hillary Clinton broke the law in handling classified information on her private server, which was the initial claim of the New York Times story.
It's pretty embarrassing for what I consider to be the best newspaper in the country, if not the world. Maybe I wouldn't go that far, but certainly in the country, and that on such a big story for such a big candidate in such an important race, that they would rush to print with this thing without checking it out.
And when the story first came live, it was a big deal because you'll remember this is what brought down General David Petraeus, the handling of classified email information and mishandling that information. And the immediate kind of rush to judgment was, my goodness, if Hillary can have the same kind of problems, that if she mishandled classified information on her server, she could go down for this.
Yeah.
Turned out to be not the case.
So is the New York Times just trying to undo Hillary Clinton? Or?
I don't know. Certainly, if you ask the Clinton folks, they think there's a long history with that paper where they've published stories that they then had to retract. But of course, the initial damage in the mind of some voters is done.
Yeah. And, for sure, it gives ammunition to Trey Gowdy and John Boehner and the Republicans who have yet another probably dozen Benghazi hearings in mind.
Well,
right?
She's testifying, August 22nd, I believe, in front of the committee there. So any questions you got, now's your time,
Finally,
Trey.
we'll get answers. Finally, we're going to get the answers we've been looking for.
Find out what happened in Benghazi. Igor Volsky here with us from Think Progress, thinkprogress.org. Got lots of more issues to get into when we come back. Join the fun at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
power. My life.
But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired.
Tapped. And tied.
Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Congressman David Cicilline from Rhode Island coming up next here on the Bill Press Show. Rhode Island, a small state, but it has two members of Congress. Delaware, my home state, small state, only has one. Population-wise,
Gotta work on that.
They're ahead. Yeah, got a lot more people to move to Delaware. But I'm not moving back. Igor Volsky here with us from Think Progress. So, Igor, you did a special, met with a whole bunch of people for the premiere of the I Am Kate show.
I Am Kate, the Caitlyn Jenner reality show on Sunday night. The first episode, kind of a look into the life of Caitlyn Jenner, how she's transitioning and how that's going for her. We hosted a viewing party at Think Progress with trans folks to get their sense of the show.
Cool.
What they thought of Jenner and what they thought of the first episode.
The woman you had as your guest last week, I guess? No?
Sarah McBride at CAP was not part of this, but helped us organize the effort. But they, I think, had a really interesting take on everything that Jenner was doing, and the show itself, which I think showed a lot of the wrinkles and a lot of the complexities of coming out as trans and going through the transition, and what family that surrounds you, what role they play in the process, and the fact that nobody's perfect, everyone makes mistakes. This is such a complicated thing, and it's as much about the individual trans person as it is their family, that it's a transition for them as well, not just for Caitlyn Jenner. You can check that out on thinkprogress.org.
Thinkprogress.org is where the video
is. Where the video is.
We've tweeted it at BP Show, too, if you want to just go there and grab it. You get the link there.
All right. We're set.
We want you to see this.
Igor Volsky, thank you so much
for coming in
again. All right. And we will be back with the good congressman from Rhode Island here on the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please. Service and the Ad Council.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
You got it. 33 minutes after the hour on a Tuesday, July 28th, The Bill Press Show. Here in our nation's capital, on our studio on Capitol Hill, where we're brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, the good men and women, teachers of America, making a big difference in the classroom every day. You bet, under the leadership of President Randy Weingarten, members of the AFT, and their website, check it out, is aft.org. You know, I've got this kind of funny alliance because I consider myself a Californian, having spent 30 years in that great state. But I grew up in Delaware, so I still have a lot of affection for my home state of Delaware. And I married wonderful, beautiful woman by the name of Carol from Providence, Rhode Island. So I spend a lot of time in Rhode Island. So I also have great affection for Rhode Island and proud to welcome back to the show today a great leader of the state of Rhode Island, dynamic mayor of Providence, Rhode Island, and now a very effective congressman from Rhode Island's 1st Congressional District, David Cicilline. Congressman, good to have you with us today.
Good morning, Bill. Great to be on.
Everything good in Providence?
Yes, and now I know that we're responsible for your happiness, having provided you with your wife. So
there you go. There it is. Right. Yeah. Well, we were up in Weekapaug for a couple of weeks this summer, and it's as beautiful as ever. Right down.
Absolutely.
That's southern Rhode Island. So, Congressman, you members of the House are about to leave for your long August recess. Are you going to pass a 6-year highway trust fund bill before you leave?
Well, I mean, so far our leadership has been unwilling to pass or put before us a long-term highway funding bill, which has been a real disgrace. I mean, we look at the conditions of our bridges and roads and transit systems all across this country. And, it's a question of public safety. We're going to continue to have terrible, terrible incidents where bridges collapse, roads collapse, train accidents, if we don't make the investments that are necessary to rebuild the infrastructure of this country. And, this had always been, even before I got to Congress, kind of a bipartisan issue. It was really something people realize this is a core function of government to repair our public infrastructure. You can argue about the role of healthcare, the federal government's role in healthcare, and you can argue about the federal government's role in certain other areas, but it should be beyond any question that public infrastructure is one of the core key responsibilities of government, and we cannot continue to do what we've been doing, which are these short 3 and 4 month extensions, which are just make it impossible to plan and impossible to really get people back to work doing the things that are necessary to rebuild our infrastructure. And it's not just a question of public safety, it's a question of quality of life and our economic competitiveness. If we're going to grow this economy and be able to move goods and services and information to compete successfully in the 21st century, we need to have an infrastructure capable of doing that. And when you look at what's happening, relative to our competitors, they are racing by us, literally and figuratively, investing in rebuilding and modernizing their infrastructure. And we're becoming like a third world country in parts of America. And this is just not acceptable.
And you and I remember, it wasn't that long ago, the day when this was almost taken for granted, bipartisan, the one thing that members of both parties could agree on, right, and did agree on.
Yeah.
There was no question. It's just...
Yeah. It's just, and that's the thing that's sort of puzzling to me is I don't understand how some of my Republican colleagues who have been the big obstacle to this, when they go home to their own districts, aren't their constituents telling them, the conditions of our bridges and our roads and our ports are, need attention, and don't they hear it from them, or and what is their response? Because it's really a question. This is the issue that most of our constituents feel every day. They feel it when they get into their car. They feel it when they get onto the train. They feel it when they work at a port. So it impacts people's daily life. And again, it's the best investment we can make. There's probably never been a better time in terms of cost to make these investments in infrastructure. It's a way to put people to work, not just doing the construction, but the cement manufacturers, the steel fabricators, the engineers. It has a huge impact in terms of economic growth, but it has been really difficult to persuade our colleagues, and particularly our Republican leaders, that we need to take this up seriously and not just prevent the trust fund from going bankrupt, but really increase our investment in infrastructure and deal with the sort of infrastructure deficit that this country faces.
Yeah, and it really does undermine the promise that we had that, boy, you give Republicans control of both houses of Congress, and they're going to get things done, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
They're going to work together, the House and the Senate. The problem here is not Republican versus Democrat; it's Republican versus Republican.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is sad. On another issue, Congressman, we saw this tragedy in Lafayette, Louisiana last week, and it's just been a series of these in Lafayette and Chattanooga, in Charleston, and on and on. And yet I don't see any movement in the House or the Senate towards some responsible gun safety measures to do something about keeping their hands out of these people who should never have a gun in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I actually thought when we had the horrific murder of 20 young elementary school children and 6 adults at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, that would be...
You would think,
that
right?
was such a horrific shooting of such magnitude, and without going into a school of young children, that would be enough to cause my colleagues to take some action. But I think you're right. It seems like every week or every other week there's some horrible shooting, and there's a little hand-wringing, and a few people say we need to do something, and then it sort of dissipates like so many prior occasions. And, my frustration is, while I certainly understand people have a right to have a gun under the Second Amendment, it's very clear it's in our Constitution, I think most people would agree we have a responsibility to keep guns out of the hands of kids, criminals, and people who are seriously mentally ill, such that having a gun presents a danger to that person or the community that they're in. And we can do that. And so we can set aside these larger questions on guns and say, let's just focus on keeping guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them.
Right.
You look at these, mass shootings, they very often involve someone with serious mental illness. And again, it's always important to say the vast majority of people who suffer mental illness never have a gun, aren't violent, so I'm not suggesting anyway that that's typical. But in those instances where people have exhibited serious mental illness, such that having a gun would be dangerous, we ought to prevent that person from having a gun. And we have the ability to do it. I've introduced a bill that would strengthen our ability to do it, to end the purchase of firearms by dangerous individuals, to give mental health professionals the ability to enter disqualifying information when someone's exhibited an intention to hurt themselves or others by a gun. These are common sense proposals that I think the vast majority of Americans, and my guess is the vast majority of gun owners, will support. But so far, the Congress has been unwilling to take up even fixing the background check system. And, I know a lot of people blame the NRA for this. I blame the members of Congress. This is about political courage, about political responsibility. It is our responsibility to bring those bills to the floor and to vote on them and pass them. And, there's a lot of special interests, a lot of pressure groups that work in Washington. At the end of the day, it's up to the members of Congress to do what's right, and it's inexcusable that we have not had brought before us common sense gun safety legislation to end the scourge of violence, or at least reduce it in our communities.
Well, I think it's extremely important that members like you keep raising this issue, even though you meet a lot of resistance, because it's got to happen, and it's going to happen. Another thing that has to happen. There's so many states in this country, one would not believe today, where you could be fired from your job just simply because you happen to be a member of the LGBT community. And there's been long talk about legislation in Congress. I know you've been working on that. What are the prospects for either ENDA or whatever it's called this year, Congressman?
Well, I think a lot of people like me were very excited with the Supreme Court decision that provided marriage equality to our whole community in every state in the country. But as I like to tell folks, you can be married on Saturday, post your wedding pictures to Facebook on Sunday, and be fired from your job or kicked out of your apartment in most states in this country because there is no federal protection and in many cases no state protection that prohibits discrimination against the LGBT community. And so we've been working on this bill for about a year. We introduced the Equality Act. It's a comprehensive anti-discrimination bill that ends discrimination in public accommodations, housing, public education, federal funding, employment, credit, and jury service. So it's really a comprehensive bill that adds sexual orientation and gender identity to a whole list of protected categories of color, religion, ethnic origin, to really once and for all say you cannot discriminate against individuals because of their sexual orientation and gender identity. We introduced the bill last week. We had 166 original co-sponsors in the House.
Yeah.
Senator Merkley introduced the Senate version. There are 40 original co-sponsors in the Senate. Sadly, we don't have a Republican yet in either chamber, but both Senator Merkley and I are working with our colleagues to try to convince them to be on the right side of history. And there is no question in my mind that we will pass the Equality Act. The only question is how long it will take us to get there. And our job is to kind of accelerate that process and get this passed.
Not one Republican in the House or Senate?
Correct.
That's disgusting. That's really shameful. Yeah. And surprising. I mean, Good
Well, and you know
Lord.
what's really interesting is if you look at the polling data, most people in the country think it's already against the law.
Yes,
like when you tell people you can be
yes.
fired because you're girlish, and like that can't be.
Yeah.
And what's
But it
happening
is.
in a lot, it is, and what's particularly disturbing is a lot of people. If you live in a state, that hasn't traditionally had marriage equality, and after the Supreme Court decision, and you're not a lawyer and you're not a legislator, you're not studying this, you think, oh, well, if I can get married in my state, I'm going to do it, and you don't think, well, are my other rights protected? I mean, you just assume, well, if
Of
you're
course,
entitled to be married, you can't be fired because of that. And so people are starting to do this in these wonderful public expressions of their commitment to each other, and then finding out the hard way that, I actually can't, now I've lost my job because of it, or now I've been kicked out of my apartment, and they have no legal remedy, no redress. And we just can't live in a country where that happens.
Whoa. So this bill, I'm sure, has a number. If people want to look into it more, it's called the Equality Act. The House number is?
And hold on one. Yeah, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. All right.
But it's called the Equality Act.
All right. The Equality Act. We'll find it that way. We'll put up we just want to put up a link on our website so people can check into it, find out more, and tell their members of Congress and senators that they ought to support this with you, Congressman David Cicilline. You're doing great work and into a lot of important issues, Congressman. So thanks for cutting out some time for us this morning. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right. See you again soon, Congressman
care.
David
Bye-bye.
Cicilline from Rhode Island's 1st Congressional District.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go, an exciting third hour coming up with Sabrina Siddiqui here, your good friend, as a friend of Bill for the entire hour. And we will also be joined by President J. David Cox, the president of the American Federation of Government Employees, the AFGE. Meanwhile, most of the political talk, even President Obama down in Ethiopia yesterday, asked for his reaction to the outrageous comments by Mike Huckabee that the Iran deal is equivalent to President Obama marching the people of Israel to the doors of the oven, thereby, in effect, comparing Barack Obama to Adolf Hitler and the Iran nuclear deal, like it or not, to the Holocaust, which, over the top, to say the least. The interesting thing to me has been the relative silence on the part of leading Republicans to Huckabee's remarks, either because I think they agree with them or else because they just never don't take Huckabee seriously anymore. But look, he's a candidate for president. He's going to be on that stage on August the 6th.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We're talking about next week. We're going to have a Republican debate.
And here's a guy who drags the American politics down to that level. It's disgusting. Jeb Bush is the only one who came out and said he thought that was just wrong. Scott Walker said he agrees with Mike Huckabee, he just wouldn't use that language. Right. Meanwhile, Rick Santorum and Donald Trump have both said they actually agree with him, but no condemnation from anybody, no condemnation. Certainly not from John Boehner, who hasn't said a peep, neither from Mitch McConnell, nor from Reince Priebus, nor from Mitt Romney. And I might add, we haven't heard anything from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu either, who, of course, is buddy-buddy with Mike Huckabee, met with Huckabee in Jerusalem before he came over here and Netanyahu gave his speech to a joint session of Congress where he attacked the Iran nuclear deal. My suspicion is that Netanyahu is feeding Huckabee his lines.
You know, we talked about this yesterday with John Allen around this same time, and he was talking about how, you know, Mike Huckabee clearly meant to come across as some sort of a friend of Israel with these comments, right, and to show his support for Israel. But if you're a Jewish person and you have a Southern Baptist minister out there talking about opening the ovens again, comparing the Iran deal to the, first of all, you can't compare anything to the Holocaust. The only thing that's as bad as the Holocaust was the Holocaust. Full stop. Right? So when you start talking about these things like Obamacare is as bad as slavery, like Ben Carson said, or the Iran deal is as bad as the Holocaust, you trivialize these major, important, sad events in human history. And if you're a Jewish person, you should be appalled that someone is out there talking about the Holocaust and comparing it to this deal.
But, you know, this is Mike Huckabee. Remember Mike Huckabee, who we know has a history of just making outrageous statements. You know, he ought to just be not taken seriously at all on anything he says. How about when he talks about American women like he did the Republican National Committee this last winter?
And if the Democrats want to insult the women of America by making them believe that they are helpless without Uncle Sugar coming in and providing for them a prescription each month for birth control because they cannot control their libido or their reproductive system without the help of the government, then so be it.
Uncle Sugar, yeah. And when everybody else, but thanks to Caitlyn Jenner, is now talking seriously about people in transition, transgender Americans, Mike Huckabee just makes a joke of it.
I wish someone had told me when I was in high school that I could have felt like a woman when it came time to take showers in PE. I'm pretty sure I would have found my feminine side and said, Coach, I think I'd rather shower with the girls today.
He's an idiot.
Good Lord.
He's just an idiot.
Yeah.
He's just an idiot who doesn't understand how things work.
Yeah. And again, he's a former governor, right, of Arkansas. He's a Baptist minister. And he says things like this. And his fellow Republicans either stand with him or just keep their mouth shut. It's just the whole thing is so. The president said yesterday, America deserves better. When we come back, President Obama wrapping up his day in Ethiopia and then heading home. We'll tell you what's on his agenda when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, what do you know? Just about the time you're thinking, boy, 2 hours goes too fast and 2 hours is not enough. Well, good news. We got a third hour for you, an exciting third hour. Sabrina Siddiqui, one of our loyal friends of Bill, is going to be here as a friend of Bill in the studio for the entire hour. And we'll be joined by President J. David Cox, the president of the American Federation of Government Employees, to talk about some of the latest crises here with federal agencies. All of that coming up in hour number 3, plus your calls at 866-55-PRESS, here with you on Free Speech TV and Talker TV, hour number 3, coming up.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like a bag?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go with 3 minutes before the top of the hour. I haven't seen Sabrina Siddiqui for quite a while. Look forward to welcoming her here.
It's always nice to have her.
I know, and look forward to welcoming her here as a friend of Bill for the next hour. And also look forward to welcoming back President J. David Cox from the American Federation of Government Employees. President Obama already today in Ethiopia met with a group of activists, toured a fast food or a food factory, and had a meeting with the leaders of the African Union, and then addressed the African Union, or maybe it's just about to do that. At 3:20 Ethiopia time, he hops onto Air Force One, headed to Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, refueling there, and then at about 11 o'clock tonight German time, he'll be heading back to D.C. And we're back with hour number 3 of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money and judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Apologize? Hell no. Mike Huckabee's not going to apologize. He doubled down. He tripled down every chance he gets. What do you say? Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday, July 28th. Would you believe it? It's The Bill Press Show. And this is... here we are in our studio on Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C., right in the heart of the action, ready to bring you up to date on what's going on here in our nation's capital, around the country, and around the globe, and give you a chance to talk about it all. We're so excited today to welcome back to the studio one of your favorite guest hosts, a favorite friend of Bill here for the hour, Sabrina Siddiqui from The Guardian.
The Guardian.
Hey,
Hi.
Sabrina.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good.
Everything good?
Everything's great.
You've been busy lately. You've been on the road.
No,
You've
I've been
bouncing
traveling a lot. I had to email Peter to be like, I miss you guys, and I haven't seen Bill in a while, so when do I get to come on?
Yeah.
Last I saw you debating Arthur Delaney over the Huffington Post and Donald Trump, and I was like, oh, I miss this show so much. It was such a great, when you guys were debating filing that under entertainment.
I know.
I really enjoyed that.
You know you're welcome here anytime.
That's not what Peter has told me before.
Look. You're welcome here almost
Well,
anytime.
I will tell you. You're welcome here anytime.
When you're not here, he gets really mean.
Shut up! You don't know what you're talking about. You shut your mouth.
I've heard that. Sabrina. Yes, all right.
Total temper tantrum.
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened.
Peter Rockburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hi,
Team
Bill.
Press here.
Hey, good
Hi,
morning.
Sabrina.
Yeah.
Well, Cyprian's not here.
I know,
today.
Cyprian's not here.
Jamie Benson here to take your calls, right? And again, complaints, all that kind of stuff. Just tell Jamie. I'll take care of it.
He fields everything.
Right. Cyprian Bolding was last seen either in Amsterdam, London, or Paris. We're not sure where. But Monty Chancellor, fortunately, is on the job for us as our videographer today. Again, we thank you, Monty. And here's a little factoid that you probably did not know, Sabrina. I didn't know until we heard the president yesterday, President Obama, winding up his African trip to Africa. He's in Ethiopia, and he thanks Ethiopia for one of their greatest contributions to humankind.
I'm certain that Americans want to thank you for one in particular, discovering something that sustains people around the world day and night, and many people in the White House, and that is coffee. Thank you, Ethiopia.
I didn't know that either.
India gave us tea.
Yes, we did.
Ethiopia gave us coffee.
Albeit through colonization and painful processes, but
thanks anyway. I
yeah,
mean,
right.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that at all. I mean, even though I'm not a coffee drinker, I thought I would have known where the origins are, and I wasn't aware of that.
As Lisa said earlier, I would have said Colombia.
I was going to guess, South America. I wasn't really exactly sure.
Or Hawaii, the Kona coast.
Sure, Kona, yeah.
But there it is.
New Jersey has some great coffee, I hear.
But, we're taking for granted that the president knows what he's talking about, too, right?
I mean, he's only ushering in another Holocaust, according to my copy.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know if he really knows.
Well, I mean, we can't really believe what he says. He is basically Hitler, according to my copy. So
there you go.
You know who else thought coffee?
All right, Sabrina here as a friend of Bill, and then the president, J. David Cox, from the American Federation of Government Employees, coming in at the half hour. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. You like Obama stories? I got Obama stories. I got a couple of them from Africa. We'll start out with this morning. He was giving another little press conference. He was taking some questions, and someone asked him whether or not he thinks he could serve a third term as president. Obviously, we have laws that would prevent such a thing. But Obama answered. He says, quote, "I actually think I'm a pretty good president. I think if I ran, I would win. But I can't. The law is the law. I'm still a pretty young man, but I know that someone with new insights and new energy will be good for my country."
The key is, I think if I ran, I would win. It's like drops mic, leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's confident right now. I actually don't think it's a completely unreliable claim, actually.
I think he would win.
I think he would win.
I absolutely think he would win if he ran again. Yeah.
He's an excellent campaigner.
If he ran for a third term, he would be younger than Hillary, younger than Bernie.
Jeb.
Younger than Jeb?
Yeah, Jeb's like 60.
Maybe.
Yeah. Because Obama's only 53. He's about to turn 54 next week because he has a birthday with my mom, shared birthday.
Oh, is that right?
They're the same exact age, so I know it.
There you go.
Very well.
Speaking of the president, as he's in Africa, he was in Kenya, and when he was in Kenya, there were a couple new babies that were born. So there were some new children who needed to be named. All right, so you can see where this is going.
I know where you're going. Go
All right,
ahead.
there were a couple that were named Barack, but there were also a few that were called Michelle, Sasha, and Malia, although there were two new babies born in Kisumu in Kenya who were named
Air Force One. Right.
Thanks a lot, Bill. You want to do it?
Oh my!
Damn it.
Well, you were setting it up so well.
Feeling the punchline.
What were you going to say though? You were saying something to tee it up.
Yes.
All one word, Air Force One. They're called Air Force One. The babies are named Air Force One. All one word.
I don't know. I think Bill killed your punchline.
Yeah, geez.
I just thought it was so funny.
No, it is pretty great.
He was so excited.
It is pretty great. Air Force One. Are these going to be these? I mean, what are you shorting that to?
AF1.
AF1.
That is the official shortening of it.
AF1. There you go. So yeah, one of the babies was named Air Force One Barack Obama.
I mean, now you know what to name your third kid if you ever have one.
That's right. So when you're a former NBA player and you go to a county fair, they have those little games where you can shoot hoops and win all these big prizes, right? So former Washington Wizards Gilbert Arenas, he went to the Orange County Fair with his kids.
That's not fair.
Right. Well, he gamed the system. He showed up and he shot hoops, and he ended up winning several giant pandas, a sack of plush toys, and a little minion character that's larger than his young son, and he was asked to leave. You cannot win.
No.
Well, there's actually a policy at the Orange County Fair that says contestants can't win more than 15 prizes per day on the basketball games. So he just showed up, camped out, and just drained until he got all the toys that his kids wanted.
Aww.
This is like the guys that count the cards in Vegas.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And they tell you politely, get out of the casino.
He's a ringer.
Yeah.
He's a ringer.
Right.
There's a great picture I'll tweet out from our Twitter account at BP Show. You can see a big smiling Gilbert Arenas with an army of plush toys.
He makes enough money.
I was going to say, can you just go buy them? Can you buy a whole
Let's
toy
not forget
store?
that Gilbert Arenas is a certified lunatic. This is a guy that pulled a gun in the locker room when he was here. So I'm not sure that he's been very smart with his money.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. Sorry to jump on your line there. It'll never happen again. So
Peter's quitting the show. That's
I'm
why
done.
it'll never happen.
I shouldn't have
Storming
done
out.
story out of protest.
Sabrina, you've been on the road with Marco Rubio, with Hillary Clinton, with I don't know who
Jeb,
else, with
Rand.
Jeb, with Rand, with who? Rand. Oh, Rand.
Yeah,
That's
that
right.
guy.
Rand.
Still running.
You haven't been on the road with Donald Trump, and yet the latest poll is out this morning in New Hampshire. Donald Trump 24. This is all post John McCain.
It is post John McCain.
Donald Trump 24, Jeb Bush 12. I mean,
Yeah.
so should we be taking Donald Trump seriously, or is he still a joke?
Well, here's the thing. I understand that he has this bombastic personality and he says, obviously, literally anything that comes to his mind. He's got no filter. And I don't think he'll actually be the nominee, but that doesn't mean that he won't be around for a long time and shape at least some of the contours of the Republican field and the way that the race plays out. He's going to force Republican candidates to talk about issues they don't want to talk about. He's already doing that with this whole sanctuary city immigration reform issue. And, you know, he'll be up on a debate stage, at least in the first debate next week. Yeah. But, you know, we don't know how many more. He has enough money to bankroll his campaign as long as he wants. So, is he going to be the nominee? Despite these early leads, I'm going to say no, he won't be the nominee. But, at least right now, while voters know him and there is a faction who believe what he says, they just don't say it out loud.
Right.
I think that's an important part of the base that the party has to contend with.
Yeah, I was reading one story this morning. You know, people call it the Trump bump, but this article was saying it's not a Trump bump. It's a Trump continuing lead in the national polls.
And it's the reason you have to take it seriously is because it's distracting from the party's message, its agenda, its vision, as well as a legitimate field in terms of, yes, they have 16 people, but there's a good 4 people, if not 5, who could be taken seriously. But certainly between Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, and Scott Walker, they feel like they've got 3 people right there who could very well be the nominee and be like a credible nominee. So he's distracting from the candidates that will eventually be up on that podium facing off against Hillary Clinton and preventing them from being able to focus their message around her.
Right. What is your take then on Mike Huckabee, who is the latest to suck up a lot of the oxygen?
Everyone just wants some attention.
And in such a way. Well, that's kind of what the president said yesterday. What's he trying to do? Take some of the spotlight away from Donald Trump?
And there's been a bit of this. Rand Paul took a chainsaw to the tax code in this video where, and then, Marco Rubio said something last week about Obama doesn't have any class. Lindsey Graham was breaking his cell phone after Donald Trump gave his number out. There is a need to generate a headline. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily the motivation for every time someone says something, but there a lot of the tension is being, as you said, sucked away by Donald Trump. If you're Mike Huckabee and you're not qualifying for, at least depending on the poll, some of these debates, the first 2, the Fox and CNN debates in August and September, are going to be the top 10. You need to do something. You need to get your name on the map. You need to still be in contention, and you need to be covered, right? And there's very little people, or there have been very few people covering Mike Huckabee. I mean, at least if you're Jeb or Scott Walker or Marco Rubio, you know that you're okay. You're still the press is still treating you seriously, but you want your name to be out in the mix again.
Well, it's working for him. Yeah. I mean, Huckabee, he was on Fox during the day yesterday. Everybody was talking about him. He was on O'Reilly last night, which is still the #1 rated cable show in the country. He was on the Today Show this morning. I mean, Mike Huckabee on the Today Show only because he compared Barack Obama to Adolf Hitler.
Well, that's how it works, right? I mean, you say, in theory it shouldn't, but that's what you're banking on. Is I'm going to say
but
something outlandish.
Politics is all about. It's just who can make the most outrageous statement, not who says the smartest
Unfortunately,
thing,
in this 24/7 news environment we live in, we're full of clickable headlines and ratings for shows that are no longer watched by as wide audiences. Yeah, I think they go after what's provocative. I mean, if you look at the number of times Donald Trump is either on the airwaves or talking to some newspaper. I mean, constantly, every day, all day, radio shows. I mean, he's just everywhere. And he's not saying anything else. He's just repeating himself over and over. And that's one of my issue is not whether or not to take him seriously. It's, can we stop giving him all of this airtime to just repeat the same vile, offensive things? He's not someone who's not going to talk to you if you ignore him for a little while. If anything, he'll talk to you even more. So we could afford to maybe actually ask some policy questions, but I think that's ambitious right now.
But you mentioned that nobody was talking about Lindsey Graham until Donald Trump gave out his phone number, and then Lindsey trashed his phone. Nobody was talking about Mike Huckabee until he did his Holocaust comment, and now he's all over the place. And we weren't talking about Huckabee at all. So nobody's talking about Rand Paul anymore either. What's he going to have to do?
Well, he is aggressively trying to use his position as a senator to push through priorities based on the issues at hand. So actually, he was one of the first lawmakers to introduce a bill that would cut back on these so-called sanctuary cities that provide safe harbor to undocumented immigrants after the tragic shooting of Katie Steinle in San Francisco. And that's an issue, though, that Donald Trump gave even more national prominence by trumpeting the sanctuary city cause. And there are other candidates, when asked about this, who said, yes, sanctuary cities are out of control. I know that's something Marco Rubio said, but they're trying to make inroads with Latino voters. They're not trying to be co-sponsoring these bills. So Rand did that. He's pushing forward a Planned Parenthood, an amendment that would defund Planned Parenthood after this video thing. I think he was, and I think now he's trying to make himself, get back into the mix. He just hasn't, I think his campaign hasn't figured out how to still present him as a different kind of Republican, but then maintain support from conservatives, from traditional hawkish establishment Republicans, that keeping together that coalition, which is something that the other candidates have been doing well, that Scott Walker and Marco Rubio are very good at. They have Tea Party support, they have moderate support, they have establishment support. I mean, that's something that he's struggled with. I don't think he's found his brand, and I don't think he's stuck to what he pledged to do, which is be a different kind of Republican. He's been caving under pressure with the Iran deal, with criminal justice. He just hasn't gotten his message out through, I think.
Right. And then on the Democratic side, let's not forget this challenge there as well. Sabrina Siddiqui, she's all over it for The Guardian. Here with us as a friend of Bill. You are invited to jump in at any time at 866-55-PRESS. And with that, we'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I see dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, and none of the candidates we've been talking about on the Republican side have come anywhere close, even though he might say that he exceeded the numbers. But actually, nobody has come anywhere close to building the kind of crowds, attracting the kind of crowds that on the Republican side that Bernie Sanders has on the Democratic side. Not even Donald Trump. Let me ask you the same question about Bernie. Should we be taking him more seriously than some people are? What I hear from most people is, this is great, he's getting a lot of crowds, but he's going nowhere.
Well, I don't think that he will. Again, I think this is about how does someone shape the race or how does someone shape the primary. I think that the crowds he's pulling are very impressive. I think that the Hillary Clinton's lead is still so commanding over him. Is he faring much better than Martin O'Malley and Lincoln Chafee and these other candidates that a lot of people haven't heard of course? And he's drawing this enthusiasm, and that enthusiasm is important for Hillary's people to take seriously because she has not generated the same level of enthusiasm.
They even have the phrase now, the enthusiasm
gap.
Mm-hmm.
But, he is also then in the process forcing her to take on issues that she might not want to talk about as openly. She's been more aggressive in her rhetoric toward Wall Street. She's being forced to really address the minimum wage. And I think that part of what Bernie's doing, though, is making sure that whoever the nominee is, that person is reflective of progressive values. And for someone like Hillary Clinton, who has not been, a long time progressive, this is an important contribution he's making. How long he will be there, I don't know. To think that he'd be the nominee, I would need to see a more commanding lead. I mean, the polls have still been so consistent, where she's just up here at 60%, and then everyone else, he's got maybe 12, they're 14, 15.
The other question is, I'm a big fan and a big friend of Senator Sanders. Is what is his ground game? I mean, does he have we know that Hillary Clinton has built up a huge ground game in Iowa, and you need it in Iowa to get people out to those caucuses. Does Bernie?
I don't think so. I think that's not really the traditional model of a campaign.
Sabrina and I will be joined by President J. David Cox from the American Federation of Government Employees coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful?
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
And, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
You bet it is. We're 33 minutes now after the hour on a Tuesday, July 28th. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., our studio in Capitol Hill, where we are brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, the good men and women of the AFGE under President J. David Cox. Proud to work for America every day, doing a great job keeping our government running day in and day out. We salute them for their good work, thank them for the sponsorship of the show, and welcome President J. David Cox back to our studio, one of our most effective and certainly most progressive labor leaders in the country. President Cox, nice to see you.
Good to see you, Bill.
And I want to have joined me in welcoming Sabrina Siddiqui here as a friend of Bill this entire hour.
Oh, well, let me tell you what, she really livens up the show, Bill, and it's much nicer looking in here this morning.
Other than Peter. Take that.
Yeah.
Right.
I know. Oh, thank you so much. I try to bring a little bit of energy, but Bill's got us going through the morning.
We love having Sabrina in the show, and it's good to see you back. And we were just talking off the air. You and I are both big fans of Reverend William Barber down at the Moral Mondays in North Carolina. I was with him in Asheville with our good friends from 880 The Revolution. You've been with him down in the Capitol a couple of times, and we're recently just back there. I mean, this is a very strong grassroots movement.
Very much so, and Reverend Barber's one of the most dynamic individuals. But what makes him so dynamic is his ability to get everyone else involved. I was in Winston-Salem with him 2 weeks ago as the court started hearing the lawsuit over the voter suppression, which is one of the worst cases in the country of what's happening in North Carolina. It's like, let's find a million reasons why people should not have the right to vote.
Yeah, that whole issue, and he's really keeping it alive. I think it's going to be. And, this is an issue that could have a real impact on 2016.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, clearly.
Yeah. I mean, you've been writing about that,
right, with
too.
North Carolina as a battleground in particular. But, I'm fascinated to see how this plays out because there were all kinds of prescriptions for how Republicans can make inroads with minorities in 2012, none of which have been followed. And this kind of goes under the broader image perception.
It's just the opposite of what they promised to do.
It is. And then, and they are. They're trying to keep certain people from voting because...
It's all about we're trying to combat voter fraud.
No, but they know that...
No voter fraud. It's virtually non-existent in this country. We have voter suppression. I believe everyone has the right to vote. I had to be 21 years old, just as you did, Bill, to have the right to vote. Now you can vote at 18. It's a right guaranteed in this country. Everyone should have the right to go and exercise that privilege. And in North Carolina, again, it's about people of color, elderly people, young people, all of those type things that a particular group of people just don't like how they vote.
Now, as president of AFGE, you're involved in another big battle here in Washington, D.C. these days. Everybody just about, Republican and Democrat, and Sabrina, the Congress in Washington for several years, everybody here talks about their respect for veterans and their support for veterans, and we all have got to be behind our veterans no matter what political party you're on. The reality is somewhat different, isn't it, when it comes down to actually, bottom line, supporting veterans. What's going on today?
Clearly, Bill, there's a lot of difference what's happening on Capitol Hill. Chuck Miller is constantly pushing legislation that's called the Choice Act, where veterans to go out and receive their care in the sector, just give them a voucher card, go any hospital, any doctor, get your care. But veterans health care is very unique. Veterans are not choosing to go outside of the VA. In the last 10 months, 1,000 appointments for veterans. In the last 10 months in the VA, there has been 52 million appointments for veterans. And currently, there's a $3 billion shortfall in the VA's budget. Secretary McDonald is saying we're going to have to curtail veterans health care if we can't take and shift some of this money from the choice program. Chairman Miller is trying to obstruct and destruct that and fighting the secretary and what is good for veterans.
So this is just like a voucher system,
a voucher
right?
system. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm curious to what extent the controversy that came up last year plays into this. Is this something is that what Republicans are trying to use as a justification where they'll push back against the administration,
because of
for
the problems
example,
in Phoenix,
right,
and
say that
Sure.
this is why this is needed? And
Sure, and they're using it. It's like, oh yeah, we need to go out. The VA has problems. You can't manage it. Anything run by the government is not good. The VA is a very large healthcare system. It has its problems, but any large healthcare system in this country has its problems. But the VA has proven over and over to be the best healthcare system. The care of veterans is unique. Where else do you treat people who are prisoners of war? Where PTSD is very prevalent in veterans. Where do you get veterans or people with such traumatic injuries as you have with veterans? So, I mean, the care of a veteran is totally unique. If I've got something going on, I want the best specialist in the world caring for me. A veteran should have the absolute best of the best caring for them.
But one thing that I remember from that controversy last year is that people said, the people we talked to who are familiar with the veteran system, is that, yeah, there were these problems in Phoenix, but that overall, the Veterans Hospital, the VA, provides really excellent health care for the veterans. I mean, there may be a problem getting an appointment and a delay in some in hospitals, but
and that was the epitome, though, I think, of when you talked in your introduction about politicians pay a lot of lip service to veterans, but ignore what the actual needs are of veterans across the country. It was the epitome of a knee-jerk reaction because suddenly there's a controversy, so they feel like they have to respond. When maybe if you had been paying more attention to the system for a longer time, then you would have looked at what's needed, where adequate, what reforms might be warranted versus just responding to a controversy.
So, as I understand you correctly, then he's got this legislation which would basically gut the VA, right? Allow people. I mean, if you take all that money out and let people take that money and run off to other hospitals, then you're going to leave VA with.
But the veterans don't want to go, so they're not using the money. And so why not use that?
So he's tied up the money.
He's tied up the money for his pet project. Why not release that money? The VA is currently short 41,000. They have 41,000 vacancies nationwide. And part
vacancies in staffing?
In staffing in VA medical centers, 41,000 vacancies. And part of what the backlog...
For doctors or nurses or...
all type healthcare professionals. And the backlog in the VA has been created because there's such a large influx of new veterans with multiple health problems. I mean, we're adding new veterans by the hundreds of thousands each month. The VA is now seeing millions more veterans than it was treating. Therefore, you have to increase the resources and the staffing. And many of the buildings, facilities are older. Many of them were built shortly after the Second World War, so they're getting just a touch of age on them. So there's many things that come into the factor as to why you have a wait list. Some bad managers, clearly bad managers, but the rank and file employees, the veterans love. They do a great job, and those are AFGE members.
Do they attract quality nurses and doctors?
Yes. I would put the VA doctors and nurses up against anyone in this country. Part of it because people want to go there. It's a nationwide healthcare system. If people choose to move or spouses transfer, they can transfer. They still have a job working for the VA. It's still the same systems. They operate the same. So, I mean, it's a lot of connectivity to the employment. The research that's done in the VA is second to none. The pacemaker was developed in the VA. All the prosthetics was developed in the VA. The list goes on and on. So, yeah, it's a healthcare institution people want to work at. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a registered nurse. I wanted to care for veterans, and I was proud to have done that.
So you came from the VA?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I'm as a registered nurse. Worked 23 years in Salisbury, North Carolina at the VA Medical Center.
All right. What do you got a passion for this issue? Yeah, but think of the millions and millions of Americans. You know, I mean, my dad and my uncles, all veterans. You know, the VA is where they went for their health care.
Definitely, and it's the best health care in this country.
There it is. So, but in danger, and nobody else is talking about this. That's why we wanted to get into it this morning on the Bill Press Show with President J. David Cox. You veterans or families of veterans, a question or a comment, 866-55-PRESS. Give us a call. We'll be right back with President J. David Cox and friend of Bill, Sabrina Siddiqui.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
13 minutes before the top of the hour. Wrap it up here on a Tuesday, July 28th. Sabrina Siddiqui here is a friend of Bill. Sabrina, always good to see you. Thank
Hello.
you.
Always good to be
President J. David Cox, a good friend and supporter here in studio with us as well. We've been talking about Veterans Affairs issue. President Cox, Aaron's calling from out in Madison, Wisconsin, with a question or a comment. Hi, Aaron.
Hi. I just wanted to comment on the importance of the VA to my family. My father died as a result of a service-related injury from Vietnam, and the VA health insurance was the only way my mom and my family could get insurance for many years. So it was very, very important to us, and I really appreciate that service. So I hope to see it continue.
All right. Well, thanks, Aaron, for that comment. She's one of millions and millions of American families, right?
And that's the way it is, Bill. People forget the VA. Yes, it supplies health care, but it supplies veterans benefits. There's the educational benefits that veterans get.
And the insurance.
The insurance that their family members can get. Many people are first-time home buyers because of being able to get a GI loan, all those type things. And these are men and women that have served this country so faithfully, that have made this country a country where everyone has the right to vote or should have the right to vote, and that we have these great things. So God bless veterans because they made it all possible.
You were talking about Congressman Jeff Miller and this choice that he's trying to push and squirreling some money away and preventing the VA from maybe making some necessary improvements because that money's not available. He also has legislation in which would have a huge impact on employees of the VA.
Very much so, Bill. He's introduced a piece of legislation, H.R. 1994, which is basically making every VA employee an at-will employee, meaning they can be terminated, fired on the spot, given no reason for their termination, no documentation, anything like that, taking civil service back over 100 years in this country. He proclaims it's like, well, you can't fire people at the VA. That's not true. Just shy of 3,000 employees were terminated at the VA last year for cause, which shows that, yes, the VA does terminate employees. And when you get something like you had in Phoenix where you have a bad manager and somebody blows the whistle, this type of legislation would allow that bad manager just to go fire that employee and stop the whistleblowing so that we don't get problems corrected.
I never heard of that phrase before. Have you, Sabrina? At-will employees?
At-will employees, basically no rights of representation, no right of notice, no reason or cause.
Well, I've heard of it.
Goodbye.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard it's a lot of private corporations.
Yes.
It's actually quite common for people who are not, union backed or don't have particular protections. And yeah, it is essentially when you sign that contract, a way for them to say that they can come back and terminate your employment and give you whatever particular reason
at any time for no reason.
Right. And it's why a lot of actually, a lot of media outlets are unionizing. Because a lot of you've heard that, I'm sure, the trend. I mean, a lot of media outlets across the country are actually at will as well.
Oh, I know.
At will employers. I didn't realize it's something that's being pushed at the VA, which is a completely different. The implications are obviously.
And the VA is such a large government agency. This would not apply to any other government agency. Obviously, Secretary McDonald has been very concerned. Well, his doctors and nurses and other healthcare providers would certainly move to other government agencies for jobs and leave the VA, creating more problems with greater backlogs and not being able to recruit and retain quality help.
This is part of their effort to bust the unions, isn't it? I mean, this is directly aimed at the AFGE and other federal
Clearly,
unions.
it is union busting. It is federal employee busting. It is also a way to try to make the VA just be dysfunctional, cripple it, where you can say we should get rid of it so you can contract it out to your best friends and buddies.
And so you said, just wanted to quickly ask you, because we mentioned it before we came on air, but you were talking about the Senate side of this. Are there negotiations there? Because you said the House is expected to pass it. So then what do you mean?
The House, we expect the House to vote on it tomorrow. At this point, chances are that it may very well pass the House
Republicans will push it
along party lines. But yes, in the Senate, there are clear negotiations going on with Ranking Member Blumenthal and Chairman Isaacson on the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. Last night, Senator Sherrod Brown and Senator John Tester did a teletown hall with 48,000 AFGE members that work in the VA, discussing the concerns, asking everyone to call their members of Congress and to certainly support Chairman Blumenthal's substitute legislation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, not chairman, ranking member. I just want him to be chairman now. Some of the tongue, a Freudian slip there. But Ranking Member Blumenthal's substitute legislation, which would certainly create accountability, give the VA the resources it needs to manage staff, but would also protect employees. I mean, people frequently are accused of wrongdoings, and they're very innocent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very, very important fight that legislation. I think you're right, Sabrina. It would count on the Senate to block this legislation because with the Tea Partiers running the House, anything goes. President J. David Cox, great to see you, my friend. Thanks for your great work and coming in this morning.
It's great to be with you as always.
And Sabrina.
Always a pleasure.
You make it a very special hour. Thank you so much. All right.
Thanks for
I
having me.
want her on more frequently, Bill.
Next time you're in, we'll make sure she's here. All right.
I'll be back.
We'll be back to wrap things up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Hey, that about wraps it up today. Important information we learned, though, today about the Equality Act from Congressman David Cicilline and the efforts to gut the Veterans Administration, which we just learned about from President J. David Cox. The Donald Trump campaign has threatened to sue Tim Mack, a reporter for the Daily Beast. Well, Tim Mack will be here tomorrow in the Bill Press Show to tell us all about it. Have a great Tuesday, folks. We'll see you back here again tomorrow. And we'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill Press Show.